Friends, today we shall learn about Incoterms. We welcome you to this project of learning export and import trade. Enjoy learning. Incoterms. The latest version of Incoterms called Incoterms 2010 was launched in September 2010 and became effective January 1st, 2011. Incoterms are a set of rules which define the responsibilities of seller and buyers for the delivery of the goods under sales contracts. They are published by the International Chamber of Commerce (ICC) and widely used in commercial transactions. What are Incoterms? The term Incoterms is an abbreviation of International Commercial Terms. They are a set of rules which define the responsibilities of sellers and buyers for the delivery of the goods under sales contract for domestic and international trade. What are the Incoterms used for? Incoterms provide a common set of rules to clarify responsibilities of sellers and buyers for the delivery of the goods under sales contracts. They apportion transportation costs and responsibilities associated with the delivery of the goods between buyers, the importers, and the sellers, the exporters, and reflect modern day transportation practices. Incoterms significantly reduce the misunderstandings amongst traders and thereby minimize trade disputes and litigation. Why are the Incoterms 2000 revised? Incoterms 2010 are the updated version of Incoterms. Incoterms 2010 have been developed as a result of extensive review of current shipping practices and trends in an effort to keep up with the rapid expansion of world trade. The key drivers for the update include a need for improved cargo security, changes to the Uniform Commercial Code in 2004 that resulted in a deletion of US shipment and delivery terms, and new trends in global transportation. Group 1. Incoterms that apply to any mode of transport are EXW, Ex-Works, FCA, Free Carrier, CPT, Carriage Paid To, CIP, Carriage and Insurance Paid To, DAT, Delivered at Terminal, DAP, Delivered at Place, DDP, Delivered Duty Paid. Group 2. Incoterms that apply to sea and inland waterways transport only. FAS, Free Alongside Ship, FOB, Free on Board, CFR, Cost and Freight, CIF, Cost, Insurance and Freight. Language is one of the most complex and important tools of international trade. As in any complex and sophisticated business, small changes in wording can have a major impact on all aspects of a business agreement. Word definitions often differ from industry to industry. This is especially true of global trade. Such fundamental phrases as delivery can have a far different meaning in the business than in the rest of the world. For business terminology to be effective, phrases must mean the same thing throughout the industry. That's why the International Chamber of Commerce created Incoterms in 1936. Incoterms are designed to create a bridge between different members of the industry by acting as a uniform language they can use. Each Incoterm refers to a type of agreement for the purchase and shipping of the goods internationally. There are 11 different terms, each of which helps users deal with the different situations involving the movement of the goods. For example, the term FCA is often used with shipments involving container transport. Incoterms also deal with the documentation required for global trade, specifying which parties are responsible for which documents. Determining the paperwork required to move a shipment is an important job because the requirements vary so much between the countries. Two items, however, are standard: the commercial invoice and packing list. Incoterms were created primarily for people inside the world of global trade. Outsiders frequently find them difficult to understand. Seemingly common words such as responsibility and delivery have different meanings in global trade that they do in other situations. In global trade, delivery refers to the seller fulfilling the obligation of the terms of sale as to completing a contractual obligation. Delivery can occur while the merchandise is on a vessel, on high seas, and the parties involved are thousands of miles away from the goods. Costs. Who is responsible for the expenses involved in a shipment at a given point in the shipment's journey? Control. Who owns the goods at a given point in the journey? Liability. Who is responsible for paying damage to the goods at a given point in a shipment's transaction? It is essential for shipper to know the exact status of their shipments in terms of ownership and responsibility. It is also vital for the seller and buyers to arrange insurance on their goods while the goods are in their legal possession. Lack of insurance can result in wasted time, lawsuits, and broken relationships. Incoterms can thus have a direct financial impact on a company's business. What are important are not the acronyms but the business results. Often, companies like to be in control of their freight. Not that being the case, sellers of the goods might choose to sell CIF, which gives them a good grasp of shipments moving out of the country, and buyers may prefer to purchase FOB, which gives them a tighter hold on the goods moving into the country. In this glossary, we'll tell you what terms such as CIF and FOB mean. and their impact on the trade process. In addition, we realize that most international buyers and sellers do not handle the goods themselves but work through customs brokers and freight forwarders. Recently, the ICC changed basic aspects of the definitions of a number of Incoterms. Buyers and sellers should be aware of this. EXW X works. One of the simplest and most basic shipment arrangements places the minimum responsibility on the seller with greater responsibility on the buyer. In an X works transaction, goods are basically made available for pickup at the shipper or seller's factory or warehouse, and delivery is accomplished when the merchandise is released to the consignee's freight forwarder. The buyer is responsible for making arrangements with their forwarder for insurance, export clearance, and handling all the paperwork. FOB Free on Board. One of the most commonly used and misused terms. FOB means that shipper seller uses his freight forwarder to move the merchandise to the port or designated point of origin. Though frequently used to describe inland movement of cargo, FOB specifically refers to ocean or inland waterway transportation of the goods. Delivery is accomplished when the shipper or the seller releases the goods to the buyer's forwarder. The buyer's responsibility for insurance and transportation begins at the same moment. FCA Free Carrier. In this type of transaction, the seller is responsible for arranging the transportation, but he is acting at the risk and expense of the buyer. Wherein FOB, the freight forwarder or carrier, is the choice of the buyer, the FCA seller chooses and works with the freight forwarder or the carrier. Delivery is accomplished at a predetermined port or destination point, and the buyer is responsible for the insurance. FAS Free alongside ship. In these transactions, the buyer bears all the transportation costs and the risk of loss of goods. FAS requires the shipper or the seller to clear the goods for export, which is reversal from past practices. Companies selling on these terms will ordinarily use their freight forwarder to clear the goods for export. Delivery is accomplished when the goods are turned over to the buyer's freight forwarder for insurance and transportation. Cfr Constant Rate. This term, formerly known as CNF or C&F, defines the two distinct and separate responsibilities. One is dealing with the actual cost of the merchandise, C, and the F refers to the freight charges to a predetermined destination point. It is the shipper's or seller's responsibility to get the goods from their door to the port of destination. Delivery is accomplished at this time. It is the buyer's responsibility to cover insurance from the port of origin or port of shipment to the buyer's door. Given that the shipper is responsible for the transportation, the shipper also chooses the forwarder. CIF, Cost, Insurance and Freight. This arrangement is similar to CFR, but instead of the buyer insuring the goods for the maritime phase of the voyage, the shipper or the seller will take the insurance cover of the merchandise. In this arrangement, the seller usually chooses the forwarder. Delivery, as above, is accomplished at the port of destination. CPT, Carriage Paid To. In CPT transactions, the shipper or the seller has the same obligation found with CIF, with the addition that the seller has to buy cargo insurance policy, naming the buyer as the insured while the goods are in transit. CIP, Carriage and Insurance Paid To. This term is primarily used for multimodal transport. A shipping document similar to a bill of lading, which evidences freight being shipped via multiple modes of transport. This is the definition of multimodal transport. Multimodal transport, also known as combined transport, is the transportation of the goods under a single contract but performed with at least two different means of transport. The carrier is liable in a legal sense for the entire carriage, even though it is performed by several different modes of transport by rail, sea, and road. For example, the carrier does not have to possess all the means of transport and, in practice, usually does not. The carriage is often performed by the subcarriers, referred to in legal language as actual carriers. The carrier responsible for the entire carriage is referred to as multimodal transport operator or MTO. DAT, Delivered at Terminal. This term is used for any type of shipments. The shipper, seller pays the carriage to the terminal, except for the cost related to import clearance, and assumes all the risk up to the point that the goods are unloaded at the terminal. DAP, Delivered at Place. DAP terms is used for any type of shipments. The shipper, seller pays the carriage to the named place, except for cost related to the import clearance, and assumes all the risk prior to the point that goods are ready for unloading by the buyer. DDP, Delivered Duty Paid. DDP term tend to be used in intermodal or courier type shipment, whereby the shipper, seller is responsible for dealing with all the tasks involved in moving the goods from the manufacturing plant to the buyer or consignor's door. It is the shipper or seller's responsibility to insure the goods and absorb all costs and risks, including the payment of duty and fees.